Hello and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. Let's get started with our daily quiz and look at question number 1. Which of the following is not the function of the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights, NCPCR? What is the context? This is today's The Hindu newspaper, an editorial titled Embracing Children. It refers to the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights. It submitted before the Supreme Court that there are nearly 10,000 children who are in need of immediate care and protection. Let's look at the question. Pause this video and let me know in the comment section what do you think is the right answer. Presenting to the central government an annual report on the safeguards available to the children. It's a function of the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights to submit an annual report to the central government. It may not always be an annual report. It can be a 6-monthly report as well. It can be a monthly report as well. As and when required by the central government, the report is prepared by NCPCR and submitted to the central government. Number 2, the function of NCPCR also is to look into the violations of the child rights. That's another important function of this organization. Third is to undertake and promote research in the field of child rights. But deciding the quantum of reservation of seats for children belonging to economically weaker sections of the society in all private unaided schools, this is not the function of NCPCR. You would know that the Right to Education Act of 2009, it basically talks about that 25% seats in private unaided schools should be reserved for the economically weaker sections of the society. But this percentage, this quantum cannot be decided by NCPCR. It is to be decided by the parliament. It's to be decided by the government of the day. So D is the right answer. Now let's look at question number 2. It's related to Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Act 2013. What is the context? Again, this is today's The Hindu newspaper. There is a widespread criticism of the Goa court's decision to acquit the founder of Tehelka magazine, Tarun Tejpal, in a rape case. Let's look at the question. This act envisages the setting up of internal complaints committee at every office of the organization or institution having more than 100 employees to hear and redress complaints pertaining to sexual harassment. The act says any organization or an institution which employs more than 10 employees, necessarily what this organization has to do, it has to set up an internal complaints committee. And a woman who is alleging sexual harassment can file a complaint before this internal complaints committee. What is the time period for lodging this complaint? Within 3 months from the date of the incident. But to tell you one important thing, it doesn't mean that a woman cannot lodge a complaint after 3 months from the date of incident. She can do that, but then she has to provide tangible reasons. What led to this delay? And the internal complaints committee would look into the arguments of this aggrieved woman, whether she is in a position to justify the delay in filing or lodging this complaint. And if the explanation is satisfactory, even after 3 months, this complaint can be filed before the internal complaints committee. And according to this law, this internal complaints committee should first try for conciliation between the woman and the accused. So statement 2 and 3, they are correct. Statement 1 is incorrect because not the 100 employees, only the 10 employees. So C, 2 and 3 is the right answer. Let's look at question number 3. Consider the following statements. The India Cycles4Change challenge was launched in 2020 as a response to COVID-19 pandemic by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Statement 2. The challenge was launched last year under the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. Yes, this challenge was launched last year in 2020. Yes, it was launched as a response to COVID-19 pandemic, but not by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, but by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. And this challenge was launched not under the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan, but it was launched under Smart Cities Mission. So which of the above statements are correct? D. None of these statements are correct. What is the context? This is today's PIB news. India Cycles for Change challenge gains momentum. Now let's look at question number 4. Consider the following statements. Number 1, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization SCO is a permanent intergovernmental international organization which was announced in 2001 in Shanghai. The Heads of State Council is the supreme decision-making body in the SCO. The HSC, Heads of State Council, meets once a year and adopts decisions and guidelines on all important matters of the organization. Which of the above statements is or are correct? What is the context? This is today's PIB news. Cabinet approves signing and ratification of an agreement on cooperation in the field of mass media between all the member states of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. All these statements are correct. It was announced in the year 2001. The Heads of State Council is the supreme decision-making body which meets once a year and adopts decisions and guidelines. The question can also be on how many members are part of this organization. There are 8 members: India, Kazakhstan, China, Kyrgyzstan or the Kyrgyz Republic, Pakistan, the Russian Federation, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. Also, there are 4 observer states of SCO: Afghanistan, Belarus, Iran and Mongolia. Let's look at a previous year's question paper, Prelims 2017. Recently, there was a proposal to translocate some of the lions from their natural habitat in Gujarat, the Gir, Gujarat, to which of the following sites? And the answer is B, Kuno Palpur Wildlife Sanctuary, which is in Madhya Pradesh. So B is the right answer. Now let's look at the fact of the day, global minimum corporate tax. What is the context? This is today's The Hindu newspaper, a far-reaching tax measure. The US push for a global minimum corporate tax may help India, but it can also cause international disagreements. This was the idea which was floated by the US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, and she has urged that we should move towards a global minimum corporate tax. What does that mean? And let me try and make it as simple as possible for you. As individuals, we pay income tax. Companies, they also pay corporate tax. Now what happens? Let's say, for example, this is a country A where the tax rate or the corporate tax rate is very high. And then there are these smaller countries where the tax rate is very low. So what the organizations or companies will do in this country A, they will establish subsidiaries where in these countries where the tax rate is low, and ultimately why they would do that? To avoid paying taxes or to avoid paying more taxes. This is something that we call base erosion and profit shifting. That means what you do, you shift your profit to countries where the tax rate is low, and what will happen in these countries? Their tax base or revenue base will be reduced. US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says that we should move towards a global minimum corporate tax so that everywhere it should be 21%, for example, so that these organizations, they will not shift their profits to these countries where the tax rate is lower. And these countries are what we call tax havens. That's what we call this proposal of global minimum corporate tax. Gabriel Zucman, an economist who also lent his weight behind imposition of wealth tax in the United States of America, what he says that as of 2017, close to $8.7 trillion of global wealth is stored where? In these low tax jurisdictions, what we call tax havens. So this is the proposal, global minimum corporate tax. That is it from our daily quiz. If you're liking these initiatives, press the like button, subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet, and share the links of these classes with your friends and fellow aspirants. That is it for today. Thank you for being with us. Have a great evening.